Okay, official welcome everyone. So in today's session, I've got an amazing rock star. He's a amazing friend of mine. He's also a client, and he is the sort of rock star salesperson behind a lot of these guru brands. So a lot of these like high ticket influencers, big name brands, massive experts. He does all of, well, him and his team actually do all of the closing behind the scenes. So today's session is all about how to sell without selling, because I mean, I think Adam's entire approach is very unique in the actual sales world, because he doesn't believe in the hard sell. He doesn't believe in the hard pitching. And I'm going to be honest, when I first started out doing sales, and Adam knows this story, I was taught the horrible traditional sales techniques. And one of the first calls I ever had with somebody, this person was so angry that they weren't rude to me on the call itself, but they shot me an email afterwards saying, you tried to use sleazy sales techniques on me and I would never buy from you ever. And I was so horrified that I didn't attempt high ticket selling for another 3 years. Like, that's how scarred I was. And every time I would get on a call to speak to someone, my palms would start sweating, my mouth would be dry, my heart would be beating. It was horrible. It was really horrible. But actually now, thanks to Adam and his insights and his help, I can do it like with my
Arfa, we lost you. You're frozen.
I think I just fell off there for a second.
Yeah.
What was the last thing I said, Adam?
With my insights, I think.
Yeah, so with your insights, I can now confidently close people super high ticket without a problem. And it's not even an issue. It's not even a problem. And that's what I love about Adam's approach. So Adam, welcome. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself, a little intro about yourself. I've kind of given a mini intro, but like, you do the real intro, if that makes sense.
Sure. Just to begin with, like, thanks for setting this up, and it's a great pleasure to be here. Hope you guys find this enjoyable and also informative. So a bit about myself. I've been working in sales for a very long time. Back in 2004, I was selling high ticket programs for Richard Bandler, co-founder of NLP, and also Paul McKenna, the world's leading hypnotist. So yeah, very early on back then, I was exposed to these individuals and NLP and sophisticated communication. And I was also selling their programs using communication and NLP, so to speak. So over the years, I've sort of concentrated my efforts in the kind of coaching, personal development space. And that's where I found my niche, so to speak. So I would say that I'm quite versed in that area and know exactly how to sell those products. And today I have a sales agency, an outsourced high ticket sales team. I also have a training program to help individuals that are entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants with high ticket selling. So that's me up to date.
Absolutely love that, honestly. And do you know what's really interesting is my son is 17, no, he's 18, and he's now getting into selling, which is amazing. And I think that's where you started, isn't it? I think you were very young. Was it teenage years or something?
Yeah.
Like, how old were you when you got started?
Yeah, I mean, I started sort of old school, knocking on doors.
Yeah.
At the age of sort of 21 years old. I actually first started out in IT and found it very boring, and then went into sales. And it was, working in the rain, sleet, snow, knocking on doors. I mean, I talk to sometimes sort of salespeople and they complain, and I say to them, listen, I was out there with doors being slammed in my face. You're working from home, right? What's the worst thing that can happen? Someone doesn't answer or puts the phone down. I was outside in the cold, in the rain, and people closing the door. Yeah. So very old school. And what I find is that people that have done that, really, it's a great sort of starting point, because they have the discipline and the mentality to really make the most of sort of learning how to sell properly.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually tell me a little bit about what your process was like in the early days, because I know you mentioned old school. So tell us,
Yeah.
what does old school look like and why is it like really awful?
Yeah. So I've been quite privileged to meet certain people throughout my journey, and they would in the sort of in the rubble of all the mess, there's some golden nuggets
Yeah.
that you can utilize, right? And back then it was very sort of sleazy and very much in your face, and you're coercing people. It's all about self, self, self.
Yeah.
It's not about taking into consideration about the person you're selling to, right?
Yes.
So so tech, sort of hard sale pressure tactics was very much part of the sort of sales experience and the sales training.
Yeah.
That said, there were certain sort of elements that were really useful that I've adopted over the years and I use in my training now.
Okay, excellent. And then like how did you manage to differentiate between what's good and what's not so good? Because I guess that's quite difficult, because if everyone is doing it one way and then you're developing another way,
Mm,
clearly you saw that there was a problem or that the old process was broken and
yeah.
therefore you needed to modify that. What, like, talk us through that process.
Yeah, very good question. Well, the reason I started to question things because it didn't work.
Yeah.
And I have a sort of personality that I don't mind going against the consensus,
Yeah.
right? I don't mind being the odd one out. And what I would find is that what was being sort of taught as gospel, if you like,
Yeah.
didn't work.
Yeah.
And I had no qualms about questioning it and challenging it and taking that bit out and chucking it to the wall and trying something else. And I've been doing that over the last sort of 15 years plus,
Yeah.
trying, I mean, to this date, Arfa, I will say,
Yeah.
with all of my confidence, with all of my knowledge and all of my skill, he says humbly, but with all of that, I still are looking into ways of improving my
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Of course.
Testing. I have a very scientific approach to what I teach and what I do on the phone. And it's always that if you can find something better,
Yeah.
take it on, test it
Oh,
out.
amazing.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so over the years, I've been very fortunate enough to sort of pick ideas and know that something's not working. I think people are scared to actually admit that something's not working,
Yeah.
because what they left with,
Yes, true.
nothing,
Yeah.
right? So they
Yeah.
think, well, this is the only game in town, so I should be using this. But the thing is, it's not the only game in town.
Yeah.
And something very important that I hope everyone sort of takes home from this, takes away from this, is that buyers have evolved, but salespeople haven't.
Yeah. You and I have
And
talked about that at length, actually.
yeah, buyers have become sophisticated
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
a very high level. They know what you're doing.
Yeah.
They have,
Before you even do it.
yeah, exactly, right. They know what you're doing. The reason they know what they're doing is they're not experts. It's
No.
because they've been pitched to death
Yeah.
by
On the
bad
pivot, really, aren't
salespeople,
they?
right? So they know what's happening, but salespeople, they're in their own bubble.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of like an echo chamber. They teach each other things that really don't work.
Yeah.
And they get inspiration from films like Wolf of Wall Street and Boiler Room, and they're like, oh, this is really cool, what these
Yeah.
guys are doing. But what they don't understand is that prospects are also watching those movies, right? They're
They
also
fall up, don't they?
they're developing a resilience to those techniques, whereas you're trying to implement them. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how's your process radically different to what they're doing? And then talk us through what that process looks like.
Okay. So if I can go back, the problem is rooted in a misunderstanding of what selling is.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And if the way that you define something and base your behavior and your decisions will affect it ultimately.
Yeah.
So the way that, so if I were to ask you, Arfa, so what when you're talking about what you do, what are you selling?
I'm selling the outcome.
What is that?
Yeah. So, for example, do you want to go through our positioning statement, for example?
Yeah, just yeah.
So, in a nutshell, if someone said to me, "What is it that you do?" I would say I help experts to scale to their first or next 7 figures. That's it.
Okay.
Really short and sweet.
Okay. So what you've done, you've progressed from the kind of I'm selling a product.
Yeah.
Right. But I will push you further.
Yeah.
Than the outcome. Selling is something even more fundamental than that.
Okay, go on. I'm
So
really intrigued now.
yeah, you're never selling a product or the outcome. What you're selling is good reasons and good feelings to make a decision to buy.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love it. Love it.
See, when you define sales in that manner, it completely changes your approach and your understanding of what you're supposed to do on the sales call.
Yeah, definitely.
Because selling, what you're trying to do is influence and change behavior.
Yes.
And then in this instance, what you're doing is you're changing behavior to do with buying.
Yes.
Now, so when you understand sales, someone just said for me to repeat it. So you are never selling your product. You are selling good reasons and good feelings to make a decision to buy.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you understand this and you're very tuned, you're very tuned into how human beings make decisions.
Yeah.
If your sales process mirrors that,
yes,
then you're taking the path of least resistance. Because all you're doing is you're working with the human decision-making process.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So in anything, any sphere, it's the same thing. Yeah. You're making people buy good decisions and good feelings.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the first point. So how you define what selling is the first starting point.
Yeah.
Now, traditional selling or conventional selling is with the view that you are trying to convince the prospect of your offer, of your product, of your service.
Yes,
this is
totally.
false, right? This is false. What I teach is that you are opening up pathways in their mind to your offer.
Yeah.
So do you see that emotionally there's a different understanding, connection to those two statements?
It's a different value proposition, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. So with the first way of looking at it, to convince, what is that? It becomes almost like a debate and an argument, and not an argument in two people rowing, but a discussion of two positions.
Yeah.
But when you understand sales as opening up pathways to your offer, it's almost that you're putting your arm around them and saying to them, have a look at this.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the difference. So I would say that ultimately it's how you understand what sales is the starting point.
Yeah, love it. I love that. So your system is called inverse selling system.
Correct.
It's 5 steps, right? So walk us through those 5 steps. What does that look like?
So what I would like to do is explain, because we'll get lost in all the steps. But what I want to do today is go through the principles behind it, which will make more sense. So firstly, why is it called inverse selling? Well, there's a reason why it's called inverse selling, because the whole approach is inside out.
Yeah.
Right. It's the opposite of what you would normally do. So first thing is, you're focusing on the prospect, not on the product and yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So you might be thinking, well, hold on, I'm a coach. Don't I need to talk about my services? We'll come back to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about the prospect understanding your offer and you. It's about you understanding them.
Yeah. So it's basically turned on its head. It's like topsy-turvy.
Yeah. So this is a running theme all the way through my approach, right? Now, also to get us close, it's not what comes out of your mouth, it's what comes out of their mouth.
Wow.
Right. And also using this approach, what I say is prospects close themselves. We don't close them, but prospects do.
Yeah, they make the informed buying decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you're not pushing, you're not coercing,
Well,
you're not trying to persuade them that this is the thing
well,
for them.
you don't have to use pressure tactics.
Yeah.
So a lazy salesperson would use pressure tactics.
Yeah, they would.
Because you're trying to coerce someone into doing something.
Yeah.
But remember, it's about changing behavior.
Yeah.
So how does that work in the real world, in your normal social interactions, where you try to coerce someone to do something? What happens?
Oh, they push back. They don't like it.
Their resistant levels go up, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So sales is no different. And
Yes.
this is what astonishes me when I train salespeople. In their normal lives, day-to-day lives, they will use things that work.
Yeah.
And they will be natural. But when they put a headset on and when they start putting a phone to their ear, they suddenly morph into this peculiar creature that and all that works in the real world goes out the window, and they start implementing these weird things, right?
Yeah.
So the point is that if you are working with the decision-making processes of the prospect, there's no need to use such techniques.
Yeah, love it. I mean, this is so insightful because like I said, like if I go back to what I mentioned at the beginning, that's what I was taught. And do you know what the worst thing was? Is I've been on sales calls where other people have tried to use that approach with me. I once had a lady who basically said to me, she was trying to get me to buy into her like 20K a year coaching program. And she said, if your child was sick and you had to find money for emergency surgery, where would you get it from? And I knew where she was going with this. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. That's a horrible tactic to use. In other words, it's like, you can't equate the two. How can you equate trying to find money to save your child's life with, equating money with trying to get coaching? It's like, it's stupid. And I got off that call feeling really angry. I was really irritated and annoyed, and I was like, there's no way I'd ever work with this woman ever, because I felt like she wasn't even listening. And I think that's kind of very typical of the sort of traditional sales approach. It's like they don't really listen, but it's kind of like they've got an agenda and they just want to keep pushing that agenda, which is quite scary actually.
Yeah.
That's really crazy.
So a little bit of analysis on your experience on that particular call. What the person's trying to do is they're trying to create urgency.
Yes.
But it's a very crude way of creating urgency.
Yeah.
Very crude way of, you see, either what's out there right now is completely outdated, or you will find people that know what to do, but their execution is poor.
Yes.
That's the problem. See, they know, for example, you need to have emotion on a call.
Yeah.
Right? They know that you have to create urgency, but the way they go about it, they do it in a crude fashion. Like, so if you had to find money, if your child was on the verge of dying, but what's that got to do with the price of fish? It's got nothing to do with it, right? So it's trying to, what the prospect and yourself was very attuned to was the fact that you were trying to be exploited.
I felt manipulated.
Yeah. Your emotions and your attachment. You see, the way, now that said, I'm not trying to say you shouldn't have an urgency. You must.
Yes.
Because a sale happens when urgency exceeds the perceived risk of purchase. So I'll say that again.
I love that. Oh my God.
A sale happens when urgency exceeds the perceived risk of purchase. So
love it.
So if it's evenly scaled, they won't act.
Yeah, which makes sense.
You see, it's not good enough to identify the problem of the prospect.
Yeah.
It's not good enough.
Right.
Why it's not good enough? Because they're already in that situation.
Yeah.
And they are talking to you.
Yes.
Because they haven't, right? So it could well be argued. So I'll ask again. So what are we selling? Just so we're on track. We're selling
the reasons.
No, we're selling good reasons and good feelings to make a decision buying, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So we need to make sure that those exceed the perceived risk of purchase, right? So how you create urgency is this: is you identify the problem,
Right.
you identify the problem, but it's not enough there to move on. What
Yeah.
you need to do is amplify the problem. And the way you do that is you future pace them. You
Right.
say, because we know as a universal law, we know it's not you making this up, as if you don't treat something, it always gets worse,
Of course. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So what we need to do is say to them that if things don't change and it continues, then what? Now,
Yes.
what that does, that takes an implicit problem to an explicit problem.
Yeah.
And that's what creates urgency. Now, depending on how well you've done your problem identification and extrapolation to the future, then it will exceed the perceived risk of purchase. Now, I use the word perceived because it's all about perception,
Yeah.
right? It's all about perception. So we need to change their perception. We need to exceed the perceived risk of purchase.
Okay. Brilliant. So actually, I've got a question, right? So if we go through the entire process and you get to that point where you're now future pacing, what does it look like for you as the person who's doing the selling? Do you ask the question, if this doesn't get resolved, what's your future going to look like, and let the person, let your prospect think about what that looks like?
Yeah.
Or do you put words in their mouth and kind of
Very good
that with them?
question. Very
Yeah.
good. So here's my motto: telling is not selling.
Yes.
No matter, even if you are right,
Yeah.
even though it's compelling, it's not selling.
Yeah.
You cannot, because if you have to tell someone, that means you're reverting to back old school selling again.
Yeah.
Because what did we say? The old school understanding is about convincing the prospect
Yeah.
to buy your offer. So if you revert back to telling them,
Yeah.
you're basically bringing up their resistance levels.
Again.
Right?
Yeah.
So what you need to do is ask the question for them to say that's what will happen.
Yes.
Now, why is that powerful? It's powerful because if they utter those words, it's their words.
Yeah. You didn't put the words in their mouth and they came to that realization.
You can't argue against your own words.
No.
And a very powerful psychological principle is our integrity.
Yes.
So if they go along the sales conversation, this journey with you, and they are saying, I need to do this, this will be the problem, this is the pain I've got, this is the implication I've got, this person's causing this problem, or this will cause problem to my family, they have to, because of integrity,
Yes,
go along with it.
Yeah.
Now, what will happen is that some people, if you do this well, and you do genuinely have someone who can't afford it,
Yeah.
they would have built up so much, let's say, affirmations in that they have to do this.
Yeah.
They won't have the ability to say, I don't have the money,
Right.
and they just won't show up.
Yes.
Because there's a couple of things happening here. They know they have to do it, but they don't have the finances.
Right.
So they might not even come up on the call, because you've done such a good job saying you need to do this.
Yeah.
But genuinely, some people won't have the money.
Yes.
Right?
Of course.
Now, the other side is, if they do have the ability, and there's ways of finding out if they have the money before you get to that point. But let's say if they do have the money, what will happen is they will just naturally fall into the sale.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is a logical and emotional step that they must complete to fulfill their integrity. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always say that people buy an emotion and they justify with logic.
So I don't I don't think that's true.
Oh, okay. Go on. I'm really
I don't think that's true, because I believe that you need both.
Right. Oh, no, of course you definitely need both.
Yeah, but I don't think that in a good sale isn't where you are, especially when you're dealing with high ticket.
Yes.
Right? If you have someone that leads with the emotion and rationalize it, I don't think that happens.
Yeah.
What happens is both components are actively involved in the decision-making process.
Yeah.
Because if you have a sale just based on emotion, then justified by reason,
Yeah.
then you have buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
Because the emotional state that got you to that point will wither away.
Yeah, it's true. Because it depends on how you feel when you get home, right?
Yeah, because then later on, have you ever done this? Have you ever bought something on emotion? You got excited.
Yeah.
And you went, oh, but I've always wanted one of these. I've always wanted, oh, you know, it's a deal. And then afterwards you think, crikey, why did I do that?
Yeah, well, I've done it loads of times.
Yeah. So of course it does happen, but that's not what makes a good sale.
Yeah. Okay.
It's both that are needed.
Yeah, of course.
Human decision, so the buzzwords are, you know, that we buy on emotion, justify it by reason. A lot of people are banding this around.
Yeah. Oh, me
included. But the way that, you know, latest research, you know, looks at that, it's a bit more complex than that.
Definitely.
A bit more nuanced. Yeah,
definitely. So how is high ticket different to normal selling? Because it's a completely different process, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. High ticket has a certain quality to it that doesn't necessarily exist in other things that you sell. High ticket, what's a necessary condition is that it must have some level of emotional interaction.
Right.
And in most cases, most often than not, when you're selling a high ticket program, there's no tangible thing there that you're actually buying.
Yeah, that's true.
And because of that, that's why your skills have to be ever so much better than what you're doing when you're selling a tangible thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Well, you can show someone, isn't it? So if it's tangible, you can just show them, isn't it, that this is what it's like a car, right? If you buy a car, you're paying for the car and you can see that's the case, right? But it's like when I bought this program, this is ages ago, and I paid 10K for this program, and it was like a 3-month program, and I was promised that at the end of it, I'd have like an endless supply of clients and blah, 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 and all the rest of it. And actually that didn't happen. Now, was the program rubbish? No, it wasn't rubbish. There was just a lot to get through, right? So I kind of felt a little bit overwhelmed, and I was like, well, it didn't quite live up to the hype. But then the other part of me is like, well, is it because I couldn't keep up with the program? Is that what happened? And then I had this like buyer's remorse like 3 months after I'd left the program, right? That was a lot of money I could have used. That was
because
kind of thing.
What you did was you acted on the emotions of what? Fulfilling your dreams, getting clients, having your business, working for yourself. That was the main component of your decision-making process. But what you didn't do is the due diligence, which is the reasons.
Yes.
And so if you had both components, then things would have been different for you, right? You would see, when we have both components, not only it feels good for me, but it also feels good for the prospect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, very true. Very true. So tell me about the results that you've had with the inverse selling system. So obviously this is something that your entire sales team is like trained in.
Yeah.
What kind of results have you had? Because I mean, I know some of them have been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. So, gosh, where do we start? Let me give you an example. I was working with a sort of well-known celebrity therapist. That she had a team of 3 therapists, and it was believed that the best, and what they sold was a certification program to become a hypnotherapist.
Right.
Okay. And what they had was three therapists who had gone on the program, graduated, selling the programs. Right. And it was believed that they were the best people to sell the program.
Right.
Because they knew the course, they knew the program, and they were therapists, and they were actually seeing clients and using what they were taught.
Yeah.
So I said to them, look, that's a load of rubbish. I said, let me go on the phones and I'll show you. Okay. Now, the highest conversion rate at that point was 22%.
Yeah. Which is quite average, isn't it? Like,
it's quite average.
Yeah, it's quite average.
Yeah. It was quite a nurtured audience, and it was at 22%, right? Yeah. We were taking typically around, I don't know, about 30 calls a month or something like that. Okay. Now, I got on the phone. I broke all the records.
Yeah.
My conversion rate, I kid you not, was 70%.
Oh my God. Yeah. You have told me
70%.
this story before. I think it's
Now
amazing.
everyone was like bamboozled. They're like, Adam, you're not a therapist.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
Yeah.
I said, I did this. When your therapists were talking about themselves and their program,
Yeah.
I was talking about them.
Yes.
That was the
Total
difference.
role reversal here.
That's the difference. I was
Yes.
talking about them. I was getting to understand them. I wanted to understand their world. And when I understood their world, then I became an authority in their world.
Yeah.
And that meant I could lead them.
Yes.
See, before you can take someone to where you want to take them, you have to know where they are first.
Yeah.
So before you can take someone to a sale, you have to know where they are first.
Exactly.
Right. So that's kind of, I would say, a striking feature of what I teach in inverse selling that is quite lost out there, actually, that people aren't actually using. So that's an example of the power of using well understood principles and skills.
Amazing. But actually, you told me a couple of other stories as well. So there was was it an IT company that you worked with? Tell us that story, because that one really blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah, this is it was actually a security training company.
Oh yeah, that's the one.
Security training company. And what happened was I got approached and he said, look, I've heard that you can do this stuff. We met through a mutual friend or something. And he kept saying to me, why don't you come on, train our guys up. So in the end, I eventually agreed. And they were providing security training.
Right.
And now the margins are very low in that industry. And he said to me, Adam, the only way we can really make money is we sell upgrades.
Okay.
Right. And I said, so how many are you doing? He said, we're doing 20 a month at most. Okay. And he said, Adam, I want you to fire everyone, get your own people in and train them up. So I said, hold your horses. I said, just wait. Let me listen to the calls.
Yeah,
so I listened to the calls and I came back to him and I said to him, look, listen, don't fire them. I can train these guys.
Yeah.
So after a month, so remember they were doing 20.
Yeah.
We generated 123 upgrades.
God, insane.
123. By the time it was 6 months in, they were doing over 300. So he increased his revenue per month by around $35,000. The same people, crazy. The same resources. All I did was I changed the script, edited it, put my own stuff in there, and then the rest is history.
Okay, that actually brings me on to a really good question, right? So what about sales scripts? Because I flipping hate them. I never work off a sales script, but there are loads of people who swear by them. Like, what's your opinion on that?
You've got to have a sales script.
Really?
You've got to have a sales.
Okay.
Anyone that doesn't have a sales script is setting themselves up for failure.
Okay.
Sales scripts do many things. What they do is they provide you structure.
Yeah.
And they provide you a framework in which to know where you're falling short and where your strengths are.
Right.
Now, but let me clarify something. Yeah. I don't mean that you will be a robot from start to finish.
Yeah, right? That's what you always think, isn't it? I'm going to read this line for line, and if I skip a line, then I'm
no. So there's a beginning and there's an end.
Right.
They have to be structured. They have to be scripted, but very importantly, the steps of your sale, the structure has to be scripted. Right. Now, the middle part, that's where you freestyle.
Okay.
Right? That's the part where you're really trying to engage with the prospect and understand them. Okay. But when you're first starting out, 100%, look, I've been doing this for 20 years. Yes. For all of my clients, when I get on the phone and test things, I have a script.
Yeah.
I have a script.
Okay.
Now, I could do it without a script, but I enhance my abilities with a script. So absolutely, scripts all the way. You see, when people think of scripts, what they're thinking of is these call centers.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. Good evening. I'm calling from internet providings, and I am here to offer you. That's not what
Yeah,
we're
that's what I
talking about.
always think. Well, here's the thing, right? So I have used, like, it's not like I haven't used scripts before. I used a script once, and you know what happened? The client went, well, the prospect went off script. I got really lost and I was like panicking. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
even know how the heck to find myself. And that's why I stopped using the script, because it wasn't the first time that had happened. So what's your advice with
So
something like that?
you need to align back with the script,
Right.
right? So you need to have it in front of you.
Okay.
And obviously the more you do this, the better you'll become.
Okay.
So, but you need to have it in front of you. So you will say something, if they go off script, the discipline, and this is what I
Yeah.
train my sales staff, is to bring them back on. So
Right.
remember, the prospect doesn't know that there's a structure to this call in
No.
that detailed way. They
Yeah.
don't know that you're following these steps in the script, but you do. So you need to develop your skills into bringing them back.
Right.
So what will happen if they go off script, you say, look, that's really, really interesting. Jane, then you go
Yeah.
back,
Okay.
right?
Okay. What about like a framework as opposed to a script? So high level ideas of this is what you're supposed to be covering in
No,
each sections. So you don't think that that
script
would
it.
help?
Because you know why?
Yeah.
Because human nature is to cut down on effort, to minimize on effort. So
Ah,
what will happen over time, you'll be
yeah.
using less and less of what you're supposed to be using.
Right.
And then you'll be saying 3 months from now, oh, I'm doing exactly the same thing. Why can't I get any sales? Do you know how many people tell me this? And then I say, let's
Seriously.
go back to what the script has. And there's a world of difference from what they're doing and
To
what
what they, yeah.
and the
Got it.
script they abandoned, right? Because they think they're
Okay.
so great, right? So the best salespeople will
Yeah.
use a script.
Okay.
It's essential.
Brilliant. So, speaking of salespeople, at what point should someone bring a person into their business, literally to do the closing? Because obviously, when people are starting out, you're pretty much doing the sales yourself, right? But
Yeah.
then you're going to get to a point where you're starting to grow, and actually, your best bet is to stay in delivery and to be working closely with the client. So it's essentially it's you being the face of the brand, you developing that sort of brand voice and doing the delivery. It's like you working on your genius. So at what point do you think it makes sense to bring someone in?
At the point where there's a tension
Yeah.
between fulfillment
Right.
and selling.
Yeah.
So where you feel that tension, where, for example, when you concentrate on sales, your delivery, your fulfillment suffers.
Right.
Or when you focus on delivery and fulfillment, your sales suffer and your
Right.
revenue suffers, right?
Okay.
That's the point where you need to make that decision
Yeah.
and let go, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they're very afraid.
Yes.
And to be fair, it's a valid concern because there's so much rubbish out there in terms of closers or people that call themselves closers or salespeople. But you need to be able to let go, because if you want to grow, the only way that you can grow is if you work on your business, not in your business.
Yeah.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
So at
Big
the
fan of that.
point where you're feeling the tension
Yeah.
between the two, that's when you should start looking to hire someone.
Yeah. And actually, that's one of the things that I do talk about is it's delegating the right thing at the right time and just making sure that you've got someone who's trustworthy, that can, it's almost like your brand voice, right? Because what you don't want is you don't want to hire a closer that is a bit off the wall and then is a bit weird with your potential clients and is putting people off. So so give us some tips. Like, what would you look for in a star closer? What would
Yeah.
you recommend?
Preferably someone who's never done sales before.
Really?
I've taken people because they're the easiest to train.
Okay.
People that have had sales training are usually the worst people to have,
Okay.
because they've had so much garbage put in their brain on how to sell.
And it almost comes out on autopilot.
An empty cup is easier to fill than a half-filled cup,
True.
right?
Yes.
So what I look for is individuals that are able to think on their feet,
Yeah.
that are lateral thinking,
Yeah.
that can read between the lines. And that's what you need to look out for. When I do interviews to hire people for my organization, for my agency,
Yeah.
I don't even look at the CV. I'm not even interested.
Yeah.
I don't really care about it. I go through a process with them to try and gauge how their mind works, how
Yes.
quick it works, how do they respond to my questions? Are they able to think laterally, not just linear, right? Those are the qualities that I need.
Okay, super. So we've got a lot of people who are kind of more in the beginning journey on this call as well. And I'm just wondering, like, what would be your sort of top tips to help them sell? So if they're doing high ticket selling and they're getting on calls and they're feeling a little bit scared, what's your advice? Like, how do you think is the best way for them to approach the sales?
So, gosh, where do I start? Remember that your conversation is a problem-centric conversation, not a solution-centric or product-centric or you-centric. It is a problem-centric. That's one of the main things that I would talk about. And one of the things that I find and I hear on these calls very often, especially with entrepreneurs selling, is that they overcoach.
Right.
And the reason that they overcoach is that they don't have very good skills in selling.
Okay.
And what they do is they cannibalize the sale by overcoaching, because they think, well, if I show them all this stuff and I do this, they're going to love me.
Yeah.
That's actually an emotional problem.
Right.
That you're looking to be loved and liked.
Okay.
Sales is not about being loved and liked.
Yeah.
Because we can buy from people we don't like. It's about them knowing that you know them.
Right.
It's not about them liking you.
Yes.
Right. So what happens is when you overcoach is that you leave the call feeling, wow, I've just done this amazing service. They leave the call thinking, wow, I'm cured. I don't need anything. And you never hear from them ever again. So remember that the call isn't about coaching them about what you can do. It's about finding out what their problem is. So a problem-centric call.
Okay. Amazing. Oh my God, Adam, this is absolutely brilliant. So I wanted to actually open up the floor for questions. I know we've got a few here. So if anyone's got any questions, just please do add them to the chat. So Maria's asking, if you're amplifying the problem in order to get the sale, isn't that the same as what the other lady tried to do with Arfa, how to get the money in if her child was sick?
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, firstly, no. Secondly, it's trying to do it, but it does it, as I said, in a crude way.
Right.
So what she's trying to do, she's trying to force feed you some kind of urgency. What I'm saying is the way that you build urgency in the correct manner is you say that if you did not change, if things continued, what would be your concern for the future?
Ah, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So the idea is right, but the execution is false. And that's why people go away thinking, oh, sales doesn't work.
Yeah.
No, just because someone misapplies a principle, it doesn't mean it undermines the principle. It just means the application of that principle is at fault, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Okay, fantastic. So Angeli's asking, well, she's basically saying buyer's remorse happens when there is emotion without good reasons. Got it. What happens when there is good reason without good emotions?
That means, so by definition, that means there wasn't good reasons and there wasn't good emotions.
Oh, okay. So they're basically not ready for the sale.
Yeah. So that means that, see, you get what you ask for. So people blame prospects. No, blame yourself.
Ah, okay. So it's a completely different way of looking at it, isn't it?
Absolutely. Inverse selling.
Love that. Does anyone have any more questions? Which question would be great to start dive deeper to know their inner world? Oh, that's a wonderful question, Undine. Yeah.
So what was that? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
So basically, Undine is asking which question would be a great start to dive deeper to know your prospect's inner world.
Okay, so who was asking that question?
Undine.
Undine Undine. Hi, Undine. Are you willing to participate a conversation with me now? Are you comfortable?
Yes, of course, Adam.
Okay, brilliant. So
thank you.
imagine you're out right? And you were trying to meet someone for the first time and you wanted to understand what the nature of their work was, what would be the first question you would ask them?
Okay, if it's a random stranger, you mean?
Yeah, it's a random stranger, as prospects are. So
Hey, yeah.
if you wanted to understand what their work involves, what would you ask them?
How do you feel? How do you feel really?
No, so way before that, ask them, what you're trying to do is understand their world. So
Yeah.
what would be the first question that you would ask to understand their world? And in this case, we're trying to understand the work that they do. So what would you ask them?
Okay, yeah, that's tricky now, to be honest.
I put you on the spot. I'm really sorry. Okay.
No,
So,
it's
so
great.
let me thank you for participating. I picked on you, so thank you for being so brave.
Thank you, Adam.
So let me give you an example.
Yeah.
So I posed this question to someone who was interviewing with me to join my organization, my company. And I put them in a sort of sales call scenario, and they just couldn't get it right. They were falling over themselves and tripping up over the words, and they just like, oh, Adam, I'm so stuck. I don't know what to ask. And I'm like, okay, let's leave it. And I said to him, okay, do you have any questions about the role? And she said to me, she said, right, could you tell me what a typical week looks like? And I said, wait, what did you just ask? She said, I just asked what a typical week looks like. I said, why didn't you say that in the sales call scenario? She went, oh my God.
Yeah.
Right?
That's great. Awesome.
Right? So the same principles and skills that you use in everyday life, it's no different when you're on a sales call, when you're trying to understand someone. Right?
Great.
So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. It's
No worries.
brilliant.
Amazing. So Maria's asking, how do you write a killer script that could work with any client?
You need to find someone who has written many scripts and made millions and millions of dollars.
Cute. This is where you get to oh, no, I mean, like, any tips though?
Okay, any tips? So yeah, just joking. So it's such a big topic to write a script. It's not an easy task, but here's a tip. In the first 60 seconds, you need to make yourself the person assessing the call. You need to come across as someone who doesn't need this sale. You are there just to evaluate the call.
Wow. So that's actually, so basically what you're saying is like, you have to come in as a position of authority.
Absolutely.
You have to assert your authority.
Assert your authority in the first 30 seconds.
Right. Oh, in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. And then, like, would that look like something like framing how the call is going to go, or setting expectations?
Well, you need to tell them how successful you are. You need to tell them how many clients that you've helped. There's a technique called seeding. So what you're doing, you're seeding authority, but you need to tell them from the outset, from the very beginning, how successful you are, how many people you've helped.
Right.
That needs to be really established from the outset. And you need to frame the conversation. You need to talk about the, perhaps, you might feel that this is not a good fit.
Right. So don't be afraid to say that either.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Right. Remember yourself in the position of a doctor and a patient. Right. The doctor decides if he's going to treat the person. Right.
Yes.
The patient doesn't decide if they're going to buy the medicine, right? Or the advice or the surgery. They're there in the mindset, help me, doc. And that's how you've got to change that.
Oh, I love that frame. I try and use that frame myself, actually. It's always like, I'm the expert, I know what I'm doing, and I can spot your problem. It's like a bleeding neck problem, and here's the prescription for it. So
you can say something like, look, listen, one of the conditions I work with someone, I feel that they're coachable.
Yeah.
What does that say? What that presupposes something, doesn't it?
Yeah, that they're coachable.
We unpack that. I only work, one of the conditions I have, so I have got other conditions,
Yes.
is that I only take on people, you decide to take on people,
Yes.
if they are coachable.
Yeah.
So what does it presuppose? This call is about me seeing if you're coachable.
Yeah, and also if you're the right fit for me, not the other way around.
That's what I mean, right? So you're seeing if they are coachable. By that one sentence, you've just shifted the entire nature of that call.
Amazing. Oh my God, I love this, Adam, honestly. Zara's asking, I'm completely new to sales. Do you recommend any books to read or any courses? And what books did you read in your journey?
So my honest opinion is there is not one book that I feel will give you exactly what you need to get you where you need to. There are lots of gems in lots of different books, right? Lots of gems in lots of different books that you can absorb. Having said that, I am going to be writing my own book. My book's going to be launched in 5 months, and I am
I'm so excited for that. Oh my God, I can't wait.
Yeah. So what would I recommend? I mean, I've got books behind me, but are they going to see? One of the problems is that I found reading all these books is they tell you the ideas, but they don't tell you how to apply it.
Yes,
so
I found the same.
Yeah. So the book that will be coming out in about 5 months that I'm writing, it will be ideas and application.
Right.
Ideas and application.
Yes. Amazing. Actually, I can recommend a book, and I don't know what you.
I was going to just recommend a book.
Yeah, go on.
So Persuasion by Robert Cialdini and also Persuasion. Please get those books. They're brilliant books.
Yeah, I've got them on my shelf.
Yeah, very, very good book.
So there is one book that I have read, and I don't know what you make of this, Adam, and I'd love to hear your insights. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes.
By Dale Carnegie. I thought that was one of the best books I'd ever read. And what my coach told me was that it was the best book written, best book ever for sales that was never meant for sales.
Brilliant.
Now, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Using those soft skills in sales conversations is really, really important.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of value in that book.
Yeah. What about courses and programs like?
Oh, look, someone's got it.
Yeah, there you go, Faisal. Amazing. Yeah, I gave that to my son to read, actually, and he's halfway through it now. So yeah, he's certainly picked up a lot of skills from that. But yeah, I mean, what about things like courses or programs? Like, what do you recommend? And more importantly, Adam, just taking that a little bit further, what do you recommend people to stay away from? I think there's a lot of bad courses out there as well. It's like, and people don't really know the difference.
I think the advice I would give is you need to invest in something where you are being taught by a mentor.
Right.
You need someone who's built something from the bottom up.
Yeah.
That is his success isn't talking about sales. His success is that he was a successful salesperson and then built a program or a course or whatever it is. Right. So look, sales is like no other skill. It's the same as everything, every kind of profession, every skill. You need a mentor. You need someone who understands it, right? Who has lived it, breathed it, who's done thousands of calls, made all the mistakes and has the scar tissue so that you don't have to go through that process.
Right.
Right. So I was very lucky. I had phenomenal people that as mentors. I mean, there's one guy that has had a resounding effect on my knowledge in sales. You know, he was like the Alex Ferguson. I don't know if any football fans here, but the retired Manchester United manager, the all-time best manager. He was like the Alex Ferguson of sales.
Right.
And I was also mentored by his sort of, let's say, his student, if you like.
Yeah.
His number two. And one thing that really astonished me when I was working with them was that they had an answer for everything.
Right.
I could present them with any scenario.
Right.
And they say, yeah, that's right. You just need to do X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
That's a mentor.
Right.
Right.
They
A
understand it
course
more.
is
Yeah.
just, you know, if this happens, do this.
Right.
But it's you see, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Yes.
Knowledge is knowledge. It's
Yeah.
information. Wisdom is the application of knowledge.
Yeah.
And
knowing
it's the
how to apply it.
mentor
Yeah.
that gives you that wisdom.
Yes. So actually, so the mentor approach is what you recommend.
I think you need to have a mentor. You need
Yeah.
a mentor that you can call up, that you can say, look, this happened. What
Yeah.
would you suggest? Or they can listen to your call and what would you do in this scenario?
Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah.
how, that's how we train internally in my company.
Okay.
We go through. You see, when you join my company as a salesperson, you're not joining a sales team. You're joining an academy.
Yes. Oh, wow.
It's schooling.
Yes.
Right. And that's because of the kind of touch points we have in terms of training and mentoring and coaching.
Yeah. Amazing. I love
Maria,
it.
I think Maria has a question.
Yes, there are a couple of questions actually. I'm gonna ask Anjali to unmute herself and ask her question because I didn't quite catch your question, or maybe I'm not understanding it properly. There she gone.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm coming from the other side of the boat, that I have that 3/4 half cup, half full, 3/4 cup full of really bad old school sales tactics. The ABC, always be closing, Glengarry Glen Ross, Wolf of Wall Street was required film watching for the last two out of the 3 companies that I worked with. No, I have purposefully not watched it because I knew that was something I did not even want to put into my soul, let alone into my sales. What are some tips that you could be able to give to an old salesperson like me to make my script problem script instead of solution pushing script?
Right.
Question.
Oh, I'm going to have to break you down, build you up again. Yeah. Okay, here's a tip. When you're speaking to the prospect and you're having the conversation, this is the point where you're really trying to understand them. Completely divorce your offer from the conversation, from your mind. Divorce it. Because in order to discover the problem, the solution is completely irrelevant at that point. So that's what I say. When you're having the conversation, so let's say you're selling, I don't know, ABC solutions, right? Do not even allow those words in your mouth to come out when you're just having a conversation with the person. You should be talking to them for about 20 to 25 minutes, 30 minutes without talking about the solution. So that's a tip. So time yourself. If you're in 15 minutes and you find yourself wanting to talk about a solution, stop yourself.
Right.
Only move on to the solution once you really understand their world and really understand what the problem is. And just a comment in terms of old school rapport building, right? So I hired this guy, again, very old school. And, kind of what you're taught to rapport build and, connect with the prospect, ask them about their day, like really ask, what were you doing today? And, have you got any cats or dogs? Oh, I've got a dog. My neighbor's son's uncle's got a dog. Oh, look, familiarity. We've got dogs. Connection, right? All this stupidness. And he's from that kind of old school. So he joined the company and then, so what we do, we allocate sort of team leaders to people joining the company. And I kept getting news that this guy's resisting. And I'm like, it's like, Adam, look, we're trying to teach him. He just won't, when we do coaching calls, he doesn't do anything we ask him to do. And I'm like, okay, bring him onto a call. So I brought him onto the call. So I can't remember his name. What was his name? Paul, let's say Paul. So anyway, I said to Paul, what's going on? He goes, Adam, why are you guys on my case? He goes, why are you on my case? I'm getting the deals, I'm getting the deals. I say, okay, how are you getting the deals? He goes, look, they're liking me. They're buying because of me, right? They're buying because of me, right? I'm like, okay. So how many sales have you done? He said, I've done 5 sales, Adam. Done 5 sales. Okay. So out of how many calls? He goes, I've done 20 calls. So I said, interesting. So what you mean is because of you, 15 people aren't buying. And he went,
Wow.
it's just like
Oh.
the computer chip blew up in his brain. And I said, get back on the calls, listen to your coaches. And I don't want to ever hear this again from you.
Whoa.
Sad story. He didn't last with us. But so anyway, moving steadily on with a positive ending. But yeah, so it is difficult, but the solution to being taught the wrong way is your open mind.
Right.
If you've got an open mind, we can help you. You can get and learn and discover how to sell properly. And Anjali, it sounds like you're on that path anyway, right? Refusing. By the way, Wolf of Wall Street is actually a really good movie, but so you maybe watch it in your vocation. So rather than learning how to sell, but yeah. So yeah, just have an open mind, and if you've got that, you've got the ability to learn how to sell.
Okay, amazing.
Thank you.
Awesome. So Isma's asking, do you do anything for new coaches or people who are new to sales?
Yes, absolutely. We have a training program. We train. Well, I train coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs. I have a 90-day program to help them become the best that they ever can be. I teach them a skill that will be with them for life. Amazing.
Well, where can we find out more about what you do?
Well, you can go to my website. It's adamsaira.com. I know it's a mysterious website name, but yeah, yeah, adamsaira.com. Welcome to sort of jump on a call with me. You can book some time with me. Yeah.
Amazing. And then, so one more question. So Alex is asking, where and how to find these high ticket clients?
Well, then you need to speak to someone called Arfa Iqbal. I know she's very good at finding high ticket clients. So can I give one more tip before I go?
Yeah, go on.
Some people that I sort of help and work with, or some entrepreneurs, they have this problem in charging. So they don't have a lead problem, actually. What they do have is they have a barrier in charging more. Now, you have to remember that it's easy to get one person to pay 10,000 than 10 people to pay 1,000.
True.
Right? Now, but something's in the way of them charging more. The solution is to charge more. It's not about getting more leads. It's about charging more. Yeah. And there are 3 things that are getting in the way. First, it's to do with their sales efficacy. That they're not able to have a good conversation, because if you have a good conversation, if you do your selling right, you can charge more. And this is demonstrated time and time again. I work with my clients. They come in with a product, we end up doubling it or tripling it because our sales conversations are phenomenal.
Wow.
The other thing that you need to remember is the perspective of what you're giving up in order to have them clients. So a lot of entrepreneurs, what they think is they're giving their time. Yeah. So what they start thinking is, well, if I'm only giving 2 hours a week and I'm charging 10K or 5K, that's too much, Adam. I can't charge that. Yeah. Your perception is wrong. Yes. You're not giving up they're not buying your time. They're buying your experience and your knowledge.
Which took years to cultivate.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So they're buying that. And the other thing as well that's very important is some conscientious people feel guilty in charging more. Now, it's the other way around. You need to feel guilty if you don't charge more.
Okay.
That sounds weird.
I'm interested to know why. Go on.
All right. So this sounds weird. I got your attention now, Arfa. She's going to double her prices after this. Go on. This is why. If you don't charge what you should be charging, you will eventually you will run out of steam. You won't be able to continue your business, and then you won't be able to help the people that really need your help.
Yeah, I would agree.
So
It's
you
a
have a
service to other
duty.
people, isn't it?
So you have a duty to ensure that service continues. Because if you believe in your heart you can help people,
Yeah.
It's a necessary condition for you to raise your prices, because if you don't, you can't continue. So
Yeah.
how are you going to help anyone? So you
That is
should
so
feel
true.
good about charging high ticket.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, by the way, Alex, just as a random side note, I know you've got my book. You want to read chapter 6 and chapter 7. That'll really help you out there. But yeah, this is, oh my God, Adam, this is absolutely brilliant. I have so loved having you on. Any sort of parting wisdom, any last thoughts that you'd like to share with everyone?
You got me here. I've been speaking all this time. What should I say? Don't assume on calls.
Right.
Don't judge. Don't assume that people don't have money.
Yeah.
One of the sort of, it's very toxic to assume that the person you're talking to has no money, because what happens, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
I see this time and time again. What happens is you make the assumption that this person doesn't have any money, and then what that does, that affects your behavior. How does it affect your behavior? It affects your behavior because now what you do is you hold back what you would have done if you thought they had money. And then when it comes to the close, they're like, and then after, I told you don't have any money.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, no, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You cannibalize that sale because you didn't put what you should have put in. And the last piece of wisdom is this: do everything with everyone all the time.
Oh, okay. Explain.
Every technique, every ability, whether you think they have money or not, do it. It will be more rewarding in the end. Yeah.
So basically, don't judge a person's ability to buy.
In that example, I was saying don't judge, but don't cut corners in your skill. This is a craft, it's a skill. So this is what I say to my sales guys. I say, look, if you judge and if you cut corners, you'll have loads of time on your hand, because you'll be finishing up with calls and so forth, but you'll be very broke.
Yeah.
But if you do everything with everyone all the time, you have less time, but you have a hell of a lot more money.
Oh, love it. I absolutely love this. This is so awesome. So aside from your website, is there anywhere else that people can get in touch with you? Do you have a link to a group or to your page? Like where's the best place for people to find you?
On Facebook, I also have a page. And again, back on the website, again, you can always book a call with me and we can have some conversations about helping you with your sales.
Absolutely fantastic. I think everyone's really enjoyed this session. We've got amazing comments from people. Thank you so much. This is amazingly invaluable. Much love and light to you all. That's Undine. Yeah, everyone's like, this is amazing. Thank you. Useful. It's really useful. It's not a craft, it's a skill. Yeah. That is so awesome. I love it. I love it. So just before we wrap up very quickly, there will be a recording. And I will be posting it in the group as well. So don't worry if I know there were a few people who actually did jump off a little bit early as well because they had other things to do. So don't worry about that. We will get a recording out to you. And also we have Wednesday session as well. So if you enjoyed this one, I think you're going to enjoy David Bell Stafford's. He is going to be going over how he got 37 clients from one Facebook ad in the space of 14 days. So he's going to be doing a deep dive into that, and that is on Wednesday. All right, everyone, thank you so much for your time. And Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved having you here, and I think I'm going to have to bring you back on again and pick your brains some more, definitely.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure. Thanks for everyone attending.
Oh, brilliant. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much. It was amazing. Thank you.
Oh, love it. Fantastic. Take care.
Bye from Germany. Bye-bye.
Oh, wonderful. Bye-bye.